Very good evening to one and all. Welcome to the 15th online lecture in the Know Your IP online lecture series on various issues relating to intellectual property rights, organized by the DPIIT IPR Chair, Usmania University. Today, we have a very eminent and erudite resource person in the form of Dr. C.P. Nandini, Associate Professor, Damodaram Sanjeevaya National Law University, Visakhapatnam, to speak on emerging cyber issues and IPR violations. This is one of the important areas engaging the attention of all the stakeholders, including the government, for a long time. And today is the occasion to refresh our memory and also to keep ourselves abreast of the latest developments in the area of cyber law and IPR and their interface. Before I request the resource person to interact with you, it is my pleasant duty to introduce Dr. C.P. Nandini. And probably by now, you must have already gone through her very impressive biodata shared with all of you. As far as I am concerned, I have the privilege of associating with Dr. Nandini almost for about 2 decades, and her academic qualifications and achievements are already mentioned there. I don't want to repeat them. But I can tell you one thing. Here is one teacher completely dedicated to any topic which is given to her. And she did her PhD from Usmania University on a related area on internet frauds. And before that, she got many master's degrees, including LLM and master's degree in marketing from Christ University. And she has enormous experience in fact, editing law books. And I am sure that there are a number of editions on various issues for which Dr. Nandini was the editor. She was one of our celebrated teachers, faculty members for PG Diploma in Cyber Laws. Then, she worked for a considerable period of time in ICFI University and IFHE School of Law. And now she is with Dr. Damodaram Sanjeevaya, National Law University, Visakhapatnam, with so many articles. And her articles are not just like any other article. You can take them as role models for the best method of citation and the best method of organization and originality. And in fact, we have the privilege of, in fact, writing an article together where my, honestly speaking, my contribution was not much. Maybe, I could just go through a few aspects, and it got published in Journal of Indian Law Institute long time back. I don't want to stand between you and the eminent resource person. And now I request Dr. Nandini ma'am to take over the session. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome to DPIIT IPR Chair. Over to you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and privilege to be part of this program, and I'm very humbled with the introduction. I hope I can do justice for the work. Good evening to all the participants. It's a privilege to be part of the program. I'll not tell the sections part of it, my dear friends. I will not tell you what exactly is the law interpreted. And the reason I'll tell you is that I'll give you the citations. All of you probably will know how exactly the interpretation works. But now the challenge before all of us, my dear friends, learned friends, is to know, like when we are talking about something new, novel in both the aspects. Now, I can't tell IPR is a novel aspect. It has been there since time immemorial. It's there for centuries together. But when I'm talking about IPR in 21st century, now where I'm going to tell you and connect with the cyberspace, the same IPR principles have extended to a cyberspace. And now the challenge before us is, when it comes to cyberspace and IPR, how do I protect this IPR? Now, what kind of property it is, all of us have to know. And we all know that. Now, when I'm talking about cyberspace, all of us know that when it comes to introduction of intellectual property rights, from the beginning, we all know that it is a private property. Now, if it is a private property, who should be concerned about its protection? All of us know that it is myself. If it is my private property, I am the one who have to protect. And what does the state does? States helps through regulation to protect my right, which has been either granted or acquired. So jurisprudentially, when I'm talking, the intellectual property rights are either acquired by me, or because of my creative ideas and expression which I have put forth in any form for that matter. I include, why did I stress upon the word any form? I tell you, the form which I am going to speak now is all in the internet era or the age where we talk about electronic copies. So electronically, if you have created it, or if you have created in your regular physical manner also, how it can basically be protected in a stage where things are transmitted in a second from one part of the world to another part of the world. Now, when I'm talking that it is being transmitted from one part of the world and another part of the world, we also know the feature of the intellectual property right protection, my dear friends. I think you must have gone through all these classes basically. But before starting that, how I would take mine, I would like to give a little introduction so that I can connect it to how there will be a policy or a principle which has been enunciated by the international law, that though your intellectual property rights, our intellectual property rights are territorial in principle, and the protection also is territorial in nature. At what time the international conventions, starting from the Bern till our WIPO trips, we have made it available that there is multi-jurisdictional protection which is possible. And why did I insist upon multi-jurisdictional protection? Because when I insist that there is to be a protection under cyber law, my dear friends, we have to be very, very clear that when I tell cyberspace, and I call upon the word cyberspace, we all know that this is a space which is being created, and this creation is probably notional. We don't know that this property exists. There is a lot of discussion still going on that should we give this cyberspace the property space or not? Is it movable property? Is it a tangible property? Is it an intangible property as such? And with these questions still not decided, we can only say that the cyberspace is also a notional way of purely notional space which is being created, and all my rights which are there notionally created are being present and continued to exist, and I can take this protection under the cyberspace also. I hope I made my point clear, my dear listeners. Kindly understand that when I am talking about two different subjects coming together, it's interdisciplinary in nature. One is technology, one is intangible rights which are going to exist, but still they are property. Then cyberspace is a property or not, that is not the issue now. In this notional spatiality which we are going to survive or we are going to study, now how do I protect the intellectual property rights? Now all of us know what are the intellectual property rights. Now every one of us, when you look at commonly, every one of us, all of us know that whenever you talk about IPRs, you only look at these ones. What are these common ones which you look at? Copyright, trademark, domain name, patent, and trade secrets and confidential information. This is commonly known to everybody. Now, am I going to talk about this in cyberspace, or am I going to talk something more than this, my dear friends? When I'm going to talk about it, the reason why I'm telling that I'm not probably going to talk only about copyright law, or I'm not going to talk about trademarks law, but the same features of copyright law and trademark law which has been extended to domain names and to a certain extent where patentability is questioned in the cyberspace as such. That is what we are going to be highlighting, the new emerging issues. I'm not going to talk about what are the things which I'm not going to talk about, my dear friends. Let me make a disclaimer. See, whenever we do research, we know that I'm not going to talk about this, and this. So I'm going to tell you that the old things which all of you know, all of you are well versed nowadays. No, who doesn't know IPRs now? The nook and corner people are insisting on IPR, including the central government and the state governments, which they know that unless and until there is R&D, research and patent and copyrightability and trademark issues which are going to come up at the national level, and unless and until we have good IPR, we know that it is going to affect our GDP as well as economic perspective. So we all know, including the central government, which has basically recently, in one of the policy matters, they have allowed, what is that they have allowed? Educational institutions, if they are going to protect IPRs, that when they create IPRs, 80% fees exemption. What else can a state do when they are encouraging most of the educational institutions to take up the matter? And they see why IPR has been insistent on educational institutions. I'll tell you, my dear friends, whenever you talk about IP, intellectual property rights, in the other countries, it is most of the times it's not only the companies which create. That means R&D companies only don't create IPRs. Educational institutions, in collaboration with the corporates, then they create the intellectual property rights. So educational institutions, if they are filing it, it is well and good. And now we know that in India, it's most of the time CFIR, then IIMs, then IITs, and also other private universities which are coming up and then filing patents. So that shows that the encouragement is going to pay some kind of fruits for India, because this is going to be one of the largest economies which aim at 1 trillion economy in future by 2025. If we have to claim that we are going to be one of the richest economy, I will tell you, without intellectual property rights protection, most probably it will not happen at all. Now, if these are the 4 common things which we are going to talk about, I basically will tell you there are new kinds of IPR which are evolving. All of us know that industrial design was the first one which was protected. I will not highlight on that. Plant varieties, all of you know, have a little limitations on that other than genetically modified plant varieties. So probably that won't come much with, unless and until it relates to R&D, it won't come much with our cyberspace as such, unless there is an economic espionage or a sabotage which takes place from the company's R&D and then they steal it or hack it into, then I don't basically bring it into the cyberspace. Protection of integrated circuits to a certain extent, yes, possible that there may be an infringement in cyberspace as such. Geographical indication and their protection probably will not much pay for me. Protection against unfair competition is certainly going to be a new parameter for me in the cyberspace. What is this unfair competition? And the trust law, antitrust laws and competition law, which is going to be covered, that includes in your IPR, intellectual property rights, which are being covered. And the other new kinds of IPR which are coming up is not the Biodiversity Act, which we already know in a different parameter also, but I am certainly going to highlight on the data exclusivity. I'm going to talk about unfairness in the cyberspace, about the protection of intellectual property rights, and also on rights of publicity and the protection of unoriginal databases. Why should we talk about all these things? We all know that, my dear friends, the olden days, when we look at the intellectual property rights, probably most of you, if you have touched upon the intellectual property rights, look at this list of things which I have made in my PPT. The early issues in cyberspace and IPR, or IPR in cyberspace, whatever you call so, were very, very clear with certain categories of infringement. Trade dressing, product design, trademark dilution, blurring and tarnishment, linking and deep linking, framing, in-linking, meta tags, list them, domain name, including trademark violations, etc., and also cyber squatting. All of us know these words now, probably. I am under the assumption, but most of you must have heard about it. When it comes to copyright, we know that how your original work cannot be copied either otherwise or electronically, and even it cannot be made as a derivative work, which is a right which has been created. So distribution rights also are restricted unless and until you are a licensee or you have been assigned with that. You can't basically do a distribution of that, or you should have taken a distribution license for that reason. Otherwise, you can't do it. So like that, there are list of things like anti-trafficking, routing, cache, safe harboring, and in this webcasting, web design, secondary liability, anti-circumvention law, and these are which are commonly known to all of us. Now, when it comes to patent, we also know that when it comes to certain countries, patents are also given to computer programs, not languages as such. But when it comes to we talking about computer programs, if it is a creation and it fulfills the patent requirement, US can give both copyrights and patents for computer software programs. But when it comes to EU, they are very, very clear that they don't give it for language. But these days, the European Union, after the European protection, the copyright protection and the patent protection laws, they've extended it only saying that in case if the computer program is allowed with certain business methods and that is required as all the essentials of patents are fulfilled, certain categories of computer programs are given patent. Otherwise, no in European Union. And in India, the council or the patent agent must be very, very smart only to make it available that it can be patentable. Otherwise, in India also, we are copyrighting the patent protection. Now, why did I talk about all this? And the trade secret law, which always will be trade secret unless and until you are very clear with your non-disclosure agreement, non-compete agreements, trade secrets, and especially that can happen with software and also inadvertent third-party espionage and reverse engineering. So these are the basic ideas of IPR violation in cyberspace. This is known, all of you. Whenever you read even the oldest of the books, that means you open any IPR book, that is because it is a chair, that is IP chair. I don't think that is at the ground level which we are working. We are working at the next level. Because I was asked to speak on emerging issues, I have taken up only the emerging issues. Now, probably in the phase of telling you the emerging issues, we will touch upon certain things which you must probably be knowing about it. And there are various laws. But what about the laws in India? All of us know that we have enough statutory protection under the Indian law. But when you look at the Indian law, we are again taking help from the other country law. Like if you talk about CDFA, you're talking about SOPA, you are talking about DIPA. That means from the American perspective, you take the Americans, and from the Europeans' perspective, you take the European law. And we are able to create a balance at the international level in spite of we being one of the market. Please kindly understand, my dear friends, we are in the market list of blacklisted countries in case if we don't have good intellectual property rights by the US. US always has an eye on us. Why do US always have an eye on us? Because unless and unless we are out of this blacklisted part, we can't say that India is doing good in your intellectual property rights protection as such. Yes, operating. Is it only for that it is MNCs are operating? But is it only because they are working in India? There are so many countries which are working in India when it comes to understanding of. And I'll tell you, my dear friends, India is one of the countries where counterfeiting is commonly known. Counterfeiting of software piracy, counterfeiting of other kind of electronic copies which are there. We are very good at counterfeiting. And if we are not doing good protection, that means we don't have good laws to protect these electronic copies which have been there for software. You know, most of us don't take a Microsoft license. Do we buy it when we are talking? Do we buy it? Us would ask because we have to pay 8 to 10,000. Probably we would ask that कोई कुछ ना कुछ कर दो भैया, कुछ डाल दो ना, working जैसा हो जाएगा. That is not the way. That is why we are blacklisted, because we don't have good cyber security laws. In one of the issues, when we know that, especially after Novartis, we know that India is being always under the lens to see to it that it doesn't actually use your compulsory licensing or not granting patents in certain issues. Because if we start doing that, we will not be getting a good international reputation for indexing which happens relating to IPR. What is this IPR indexing? How good is this country to develop IPR and have a protection for that? I think probably we stand in the 40th rank. In last year, we were in the 36th rank. We are within the 35 to 40 ranks in the world for the protection index of the intellectual property rights as such. That makes us a decent country with a good law in place, understanding of what exactly is the protection which we are going to do with, my dear friends. Now, if I talk about the European, that is US, I have just listed the laws. I will not talk about the much of US laws. You can just name some of them: economic espionage, national stolen property, trade secret, mail and wire frauds, computer frauds, then trademark related, counterfeiting, trademark counterfeiting law, the Pro-IP Act, RICO and money laundering. When you're talking about copyright law, you can talk about the internet and the first sale doctrine. You can talk about internet service provider liability, or false marketing when it comes to the market patent law, and counterfeiting or foreign letters patent, which can be there. And when it comes to cable television and satellite decrambling also, there is a good law when it comes to RICO. So these are the few laws which are there in the United States for controlling and curbing infringements of intellectual property rights in the cyberspace. So it's not only in the cyberspace, but it extends to cyberspace. That means whatever laws are made, the provisions of that are good enough to extend the protection to cyberspace also. Now, what drives innovation when it comes to IP protection? My dear friends, all of us know that if I don't have an incentive, I will never work. I don't have an incentive, I'll never work. The reason I'm telling you is that everything should be rewarded. Whenever a child does a good dancing, we reward that with a chocolate. Kya acha bola aapne, chocolate dete hain hum log. So is that the way the state also should do, my dear friends? Yes, the state should reward. Unless and until an individual or a company is rewarded with something, there is nobody who would like to innovate. With this background, we know that when you look at the development of cyberspace as such, what was that when I started beginning to learn my cyberspace in the year 2000? Probably I wrote my pre-PhD exam in the year 2007, but I started around in 2005. I could not get any material in India to even do the study. So there was a chance that I would have dropped it out, but I took it as a challenge that kahin se kahin, study karke hum karenge. So it took for a while to understand that how cyberspace is working. And with that working, we have understood that now when you're talking about these the intellectual property rights protection, the argument which is going on in the United States and the Indian perspective is that instead of being a private right, the intellectual property right in the new era is becoming more of a public right. There is a criticism for this. Anybody just tell me, there are some advocates and IPR related friends. From US said that India currently lacks an effective system. Yes, Satyendra, for protection against the unfair commercial use as well as unauthorized display test and other data generation to obtain. Very good. That's an absolutely right answer. India is not. But other intellectual property like Terminic, US tried to get IPR. It was when India raised objection. I think attempts were stopped. Okay. Nitya, it's not exactly that. The second part of Satyendra's answer is reasonably correct. And I tell you that why the people are telling about that it should remain a private right or it should go to a public right. Now, for everything, if you look at even the 2012 Copyright Amendment Law, my dear friends, you know that the criminal liability has been imposed rather than a civil liability. Automatically, for a copyright piracy, you can see that there is a criminal liability which is imposed in the recent days. Is it good or bad? If you're talking about, is it good or bad? My dear friends, I'm really telling you, when I'm talking that it is a private right, it is my right to protect it. I can't sleep over my rights. I have to fight for my rights to be protected, and that is what is expected. But once you start imposing more number of criminal liability to this part, the jurisprudence which is developing now, the more number of criminal liability you are going to impose. Because in the US, how do the lobbying takes place in the US lawmaking? Can anybody tell me? The lobbying takes place, my dear friends, wherever is the private party. They see to it that in order to protect their interests, the corporations come together, they lobby with each other and then tell that state that this is what the law we make. That is why copyright law, when you're talking about, when it was basically, when you look at in the TRIPS also, that is a protection year. They have extended to 70 years. Is it required after your death for 70 years? When you look at certain countries, an average it was 50 years was good enough. But then in India, we have 60 years and in US, we extended to 70 years. And if you know why the lobbyisting doing is that Look at your own Mickey Mouse, that is Warner Brothers. They are the major players in extending this number of years to 70 years, rather to see to it that their protection continues for some more generations. So if you talk about that, you understand that the lobbying which takes place by the companies, by the corporations to create laws for intellectual property protection by itself shows that there are more numerous challenges which arise time and again. Now, all of you know that it is when you're talking about cyberspace, it is Industry 4.0. Can anybody tell me why it is Industry 4.0? Why are we making so much of hangama about IPR and cyberspace? Can anybody tell me why so much of hue and cry is made when it comes to protection under the Industry 4.0? My dear friends, tomorrow when you walk into the house, basically you don't need a key. When you want to take a shower, you don't need to basically go and switch on your geyser. When you walk into your drawing room, you don't need to take a switch and switch on your AC for comfort. Everything will be IoT. What is this IoT, my dear friends? It is Internet of Things which will take over. Your artificial intelligence will run probably many industries, and once these comes up, your cyberspace is going to play a vital role, and the protection of intellectual property rights will be a great challenge for all of us. When your blockchain technology is working now, when you're talking about the new recent emerging issues, these are the emerging issues which come up. Now, if your blockchain technology is going to work out, your banking sector is working with blockchain technology, if your cryptocurrency is working with blockchain technology, in future, many of the financial assistance will work through blockchain technology. Probably we will extend the blockchain technology to many more industries. Once we start, it is thought as of now that compared to other kind of the development which has happened, blockchain technology is one of the most secure compared to what is happening. Now, when you're talking about these artificial intelligence, IoT, and that is blockchain technology, or any other matter for that trend, we know that when in the Industry 4.0 era, and tomorrow when we get the 5G network, I think the BAT companies will rule the world. What is this BAT company? Can anybody tell me why they are called as BAT? BAT is there is an apprehension that, why US is getting apprehended because of Chinese development of 5G, and the control which they have over the technological development is because of the BAT. What is this BAT? Now, why these BAT companies are going to rule? The reason is that the more technically sound companies are going to rule the world. And who are those? Those which have database. When you look at the world, if you are going to be ruled in future, it is not going to be by your sovereigns. It is going to be by your companies, my dear friends. 10 most well-known companies of this world will rule the world is what the future is talking about. Not probably your political leaders, not probably your only the rich ones. The ones which are technically sound are going to rule the world. And once I say that there is a possibility of technical and coding which is going to rule the world, we have to talk about information is knowledge is basically we tell that knowledge is power. In future, data and information is going to be a weapon. Now, why? Where is the information? Information technology law was evolved because we know that most of our data, including what I eat, what I breathe, what I search, what is that I'm doing in my home, and where am I traveling, all are recorded by the databases which we use. Once you log on to your GPS, my dear friends, you know that anybody can trace you out that where you are heading towards. So with this technology growing and with the driverless cars which are going to come up, Uber is not just a fool to invest in not even owning a single car. Don't think that Uber did not become such a big company. Uber was knowing the future. Uber is going to play with the vital road instead of we buying something as a car for ourselves. Uber is one such, and now there are a lot of litigations against Uber. Why Why there are a lot of litigation against Uber? I'll tell you the reason for that also, because is there an intellectual property involved with the Uber when I'm talking about? Now, what is the cyberspace and IPR relation? The companies which we are talking about, my dear friends, the IPR infringement in the cyberspace is costing about $225 billion to $600 billion. And once I know that there is an economic loss, I know that I have to make enough loss, stringent loss. That is what I told you. When private right can become a public right, when the criminal liabilities are imposed, why states are taking so stringent action against the intellectual property violations? Because if it is a license or a assignment part of it and a property part of it, internationally, all of us know that the Rome I Convention would cover it. Any contractual obligations, if you're talking about, my dear friends, we know that the Rome I regulations, which are there in the EU, that means where we universalize the commercial transactions and also the other parts of the commercial law. We know there is a law which will basically tell you these are the laws which are going to happen. Either it is a partnership, it's a joint venture, it's mergers and acquisitions and takeovers, or raising funds or capital investments or anything. We know that it's all contractual in nature, and it is becoming easy for us when it is contractual in nature. We will follow the Rome I regulation. But when it comes to non-contractual obligations, do you think that there'll be only contractual obligations in the cyberspace and intellectual property violations where it's talking about licenses, assignments? No, my dear friends, it's not possible that it's only going to be a contractual liability. There is a possibility that we will have a tortious liability. There are other liabilities which are not covered under the contractual liability. And for that reason, I have to basically go to the Rome II regulations to find out what are the solutions which I have to find for these, including defamations which come up in online atmosphere or the cyberspace as such. Then where is the territoriality which I can basically question? So whenever you're going to talk about the territoriality principle which is applied to IPR, all of you would say that, ma'am, Nandini ma'am, basically it is territorial now. Whenever I feel that there is a protection which has to be claimed in the court of law, it has to be basically registered in this particular country. Only then I'm going to make a claim, successful claim for infringement. That is very true, because we did follow always a territorial principles. Even now we have a territoriality principle when it comes to intellectual property rights. Then you will tell that cyberspace is not territorial in nature. Am I correct, my dear friends? Cyberspace is not territorial in nature. It is supranational or transnational in nature. Cyberspace doesn't have a territory. Now, can anybody tell me, when cyberspace have no territory, but the intellectual property rights are territorial in nature or by nature, how do you extend the protection or the infringement and protection in the cyberspace? Very good. Bad companies. Yes, Tencent and BAT and Alibaba. Very good. I'm really glad and proud of the answers which have been put forth. That's absolutely interacting in nature. Thank you, my dear friends. Now, if I'm going to talk about it, you understand that this is going to be a problem. But I'll tell you, look at the information technology section 1. Look at information technology section 9. 79 is ISP's liability. Look at that also. We will need for that. Look at section 75. Look at section 79 and look at section 81. Why these 4 sections have to be looked at, including section 3 and 4 of the Indian Penal Code. Anything which is violated under the Information Technology Act. And when it comes to section 81 of the Information Technology Act, kindly make a note. It is saying that notwithstanding anything contained in the intellectual property laws, they have named only copyright law and patent law. It is an ejusdem generis rule for all the protection which happens here. And then we understand that how do we protect this even at the extraterritorial jurisdiction applicable, my dear friends. So though the protection and the registration and the protection can be claimed within the territoriality principle, my dear friends, your extension can go under the cyberspace. If there is a violation, you can claim based on personal jurisdiction. Probably some teacher or some speaker must have done it already on personal jurisdiction, which I will not highlight because I go to the issues which are being raised in the recent generations. Now, any IPR protection or IPR infringement, you have to look at from so many perspectives. Never look at from one perspective as a regulator. As a regulator, a lawmaker, I have to look at it in one way. As a judiciary, I have to look at it in one way. As a creator of the intellectual property laws, I have to look at my protection in one way. And basically, when I am a user of an intellectual property, I have to look at it one way. All of us use the antivirus, correct? Na? All of us use antivirus for our systems, including our mobiles. We even insure. Cyber insurance is going to be one of the futuristic thought which is going to come up in future. So when you're going to talk about all these things, you know that this is the future of the things, and you know this is going to be my future, then you have to have a foresight of lawmaking. You can't just stand behind and think that, okay, kal karenge, kuch nahi karenge kal hum log. So what is that we have to do? We have to think about that in the industry's angle, in the government's angle, in the educational or universities angle, or R&D institutions. Beyond that, user-friendly nature should be there for an intellectual property law. If you don't have all these stakeholders in mind, my dear friends, your emerging issues will collapse. People, if they are not, all the stakeholders' interests are not protected, then probably your law will actually collapse like a flake of the stand of your what we call as a card, that is the created cards as such. Now, why did I talk about this? We'll come to little of copyright violations which are happening around in the cyberspace. Now, everybody creates speech. How many of us create speech? You can make a reel and put up in the Facebook, yes or no? And now, if you heard about this Kacha Badam song, you get fed up with that. And the recent Pushpa song being used in every other short reels. Where's copyright protection for this Kacha Badam singer? Anybody has thought about the Kacha Badam singer? Did he get a copyright? Now, can anybody tell me, how do I protect these work which are created by individuals, but they might not know that there is a copyright protection? Now, if you look at TikTok, you know, is it working in India now? Why we stopped TikTok? Only because we had some constrained relationship with the Chinese. We don't have a TikTok working. Now, most of them were requested, the Indian population were requested to withdraw or actually delete the app, and the central government made a prohibition that you should avoid using the Chinese apps. Do you know how Chinese are ruling the world now? When it comes to usage of TikTok in the United States, there are about more than 750,000 users of TikTok app. And you know what is a prohibition which has come up in the recent orders and directives by the state and the central government of all the federal nation, if it's US and the central government of India. None of the government servant in the United States can have an app of TikTok. In the Indian perspective, it has been given clear instructions that you are not going to have an app of TikTok in the defense or any central defense initiative or national security issues, whoever are dealing with, they can't have an app which is of a Chinese nature. Yes, by even certain other countries, including Europe, is not much regulating it. They have left it, but they also know that when it comes to defense, most of them avoid the Chinese apps being used. Do you know why? Is there IPR violation or data protection violation? So now if I'm talking about these apps, are they intellectual property related, my dear friends? It is more of data protection. Now my next question would be, is data part of intellectual property rights? Now I hope we can connect it very easily. Once we know what is exactly happening, we know that we can connect it and what examples we should take when we are learning. The ones which we basically know and we are using, only then it will be an apt example of telling that how intellectual properties can be used. Data, when it becomes information by itself is an intellectual property. Collecting an information. How do they collect information? How do Facebook know what I like? I watch MasterChef. And when I see that once I watch it, twice I watch it, third time they actually on its own comes up as my priority. How do Facebook know about it? How do my cookies read my understanding of what I want? Is it not collecting my data and interest? Yes, it is collecting my data and interest. How do I protect? If you look at the data protection law, the US has a data protection law. They have CDMA, they have BIFA, they have SOPA, they have so many things which are covering, including piracy laws. But at the end of the day, they feel even now, after updating their laws time and again, US feels that that is not good enough, and the data protection law is already outdated in the United States, and there is a requirement for providing that, because if the data is considered to be an intellectual property, and if the companies start holding more number of data, is it only companies or state is also holding data, my dear friends? Is state is also holding the data? Both are holding. Companies are holding and the state is holding. Certain times states takes help from the companies to get data, but probably state would also help the companies to raise for collection of the data. They must be, for good reasons, they may be working together, because in future, if you want to have a protection of cyberspace, it can happen only through public-private partnerships. And when it comes to your public-private partnership, in case if you want only the government to work, it is not possible, my dear friends. If they're talking about only your private companies to work, it is absolutely not possible, because you can't bring people under the control of private parties. And if there is a culmination and a hand-and-glove existence of both of them, probably the space can be protected, including the intellectual property rights. But the first aim which you have to understand, when cyberspace was created, it was very, very clear. What is that? It was Lawrence Lessig and other people were very, very clear. Before Lawrence Lessig told that how do you control, it was very, very clear that cyberspace was created for free transformation of information in abundance to anybody in any nook and corner of the world, without any curb and control. Whatever is there available, it is free, so we will use it. But when we use it, my dear friends, we don't know, probably we must be infringing somebody's right. We probably don't know that when free things, you think that download is free, and we must have downloaded it. And we know that when it comes to one of the copyright infringement, either uploading a file or downloading a file by itself can be a copyright violation. Are the users like me careful enough, my dear friends, to understand that when I upload, what is a copyright violation? What when I upload, it's a copyright violation? And what when I download, it's a copyright violation? That is the danger of cyberspace. Where if you are talking about the physical pattern, we at least know that if somebody takes a photocopy, as it happened in Delhi case, Delhi University's case, we know that there were people who are taking photocopies and there was a copyright violation which was talked about. But when it comes to your downloading and uploading of certain files, including what you are talking about, Napster's case, peer-to-peer networking, sharing and distribution of material which is copyrighted, that is the rampant use of cyberspace in infringing the intellectual property right, my dear friends. So when you talk about few laws in the US, you know that as counterfeiting is a lucrative crime, things are sold, including those which are trademarked. Look at this MAC lipstick, which I have been put up as one of the examples, and the Nike shoes, which I have put up as an example. Is there anybody, when it is sold in the online, can you really make it out which is a fake one, which is the real one? Nobody can even make it out. Now things are become so easy, when we can't even find out the real currency and the fake currency, the counterfeited currency, finding out about a shoe is humanly impossible. But because the replication is so easy, including the trademarks which are going to be inserted as such, unless and until there are certain niceties and fine tuning which can be found out that it's a fake or a new one, that's the original one, we know that there is easy violation of trademarks and also the copyright law and also certain fine kinds of patent law infringements. Now, why I should talk about protection of freedom of speech, and then I'm talking in the digital era. Now, all of you think that I can talk anything under the sun. I have freedom of speech and expression. Are there no restrictions of freedom of speech and expression in our regular law? In fundamental rights, don't we have that? Should we not extend that to the cyberspace also, to tell that this is going to be a war in future about freedom of speech and expression and privacy versus data versus cyberspace versus artificial intelligence versus Internet of Things, blah, blah, blah. Going to add on that. Now, when we talk about the edge of having a robotic surgery, The robot will read what is a human body and it is going to do about it. And this robust intellectual freedom is probably going to cause a lot of inconvenience to us. And few of them, which I would like to highlight, is what is being stored in the cache. Now, all of you understand that whenever I am uploading, downloading, when I am watching, I am looking at a website, probably will there be a temporary file made in my computer, my dear friends? Will there be a temporary file made in my computer when I am downloading and uploading? Yes, my dear friend, it is. It is going to be there. Now, according to you, having a temporary folder or a temporary file which is going to be downloaded in your system, is it an infringement of the copyright law? If you talk about yes or no, you should know that in India, after 2000 amendment, which we have made, probably the amendment which we made in 2012, we were very clear that we are going to consider this as cache memory can also be considered to be a violation of intellectual property rights, especially copyrighted material, which you are going to download and keep it even for a temporary phase. It can be counted because it may be used later. In case if you can retrieve the file, it can be used later. So the court, that is by the laws, statutorily we have made a law concerning of this as such. Now, if I'm talking about this cache, it is a reproduction. As it is a reproduction of it without the permission of the copyright holder, if I'm going to hold it, then I'm going to really consider it as. Now I come thing which is very, very emerging. All of you know about cache and you also know the amendment law. But now, my dear friends, when you look at what has been sold in the recent years in the internet era, what are sold in 2021, 2022? In more number. After COVID, people thought that nothing is going to work in the company, that nothing is going to work in the world. But I think 2 years of our hard life has shown us we have basically developed much better than what we would have done, even though there is an economic slowdown. All NFTs are going to be sold. Now, all of you are talking about the cryptocurrency as NFT. Why NFTs are gaining so much? Do NFTs get copyright? Or they do just get a right over the art piece or a non-fungible token? Do they get a copyright over it? Do NFT holder will get a copyright, or it is not going to hold a copyright at all, my dear friends? Who will have the copyrights in case if it is NFT also? Who will hold the copyright? Will NFT hold a copyright on that? Think, for example, I am going to buy these two photographs which I've talked about. One is a very popular one which was basically sold for $32,355.75 US, and the other NFT was sold for $500,000 as such. Now, if I'm talking about, do you think that NFT is goods? Now, in the goods, do you get a copyright also, my dear friend? This is a major issue which is going to come up in future. It's one of the emerging issues that lots of people are creating NFTs. Who are creating NFTs? Can I create an NFT? Can you create an NFT? Can a regional level musician or an artist can create an NFT? Everybody can create an NFT. It's not necessary that I must be a great artist to create an NFT. It's not necessary that I must be a great author or a lyricist or somebody to create an NFT. Even a small humming of a regional song which I could sing. I can sing a Basaveshwara Vachana and then I actually sell it in NFT as a token, that is the token which can be sold. If I sell that, am I giving away my copyright, or am I going to just give that NFT being sold? Copyright in NFTs will remain with the creator. Kindly understand, when you're talking about copyright protection, my dear friends, even in NFTs, it is not that the copyright holder will lose his right of the copyrights which he or her she has. NFTs means getting a right over that which is being bought. Maybe probably think for somebody who is going to sign on a bat or sign on a cassette, sign on a book, and that photograph or the link which is being created for an NFT, that link is the one which you are going to own as an NFT holder. If you're owning a non-fungible token, that the link which has been created, you are buying the link of that art piece. You are buying the music of that art piece, which basically you can show to the world that I am the owner of this NFT, but not the copyrights of it. Kindly understand. These are the technicalities which we are going to read in future, and this will be the challenges which will be posing to all of us, that how can we protect these rights as such. I'm going to better put up the challenges to all of you, so that you know there is probably tomorrow, futuristically, these are the cases which will come before. Is there an IPB, another intellectual property appellate board is there now? Abolished. Why was it abolished? Now it is given to High Court. Why did we give it to High Court only, or somebody else also? District Court. Thank you so much. Now, cryptocurrencies are also fungible. Is there anybody who have seen the cryptocurrency with your eyes? Or is it there in your wallet? Now, if you talk about NFTs and cryptocurrencies, what is the law in India? Have we legalized it? No. Then what did we do now in the recent taxing, when Nirmala Sitharaman, finance minister, put up? They are taxing it. By taxing it, what is that we are implying? We are telling that we consider it as a property, and once we consider it as a property, we are going to extend the protection. Probably not directly telling that you have a right over it, probably by telling that at least by taxing there will be some kind of regulation. Both for cryptocurrencies and NFTs, we have created a tax margin of 30%, as if it is going to be for 10 lakh. How much is the tax income? That is how, yes, it's going to be a digital asset. And because of this digital asset, we give it as an asset and a property. We are going to tax. It will come also. Now, NFTs by musical artists, which are regional artists. Can anybody find out what is the picture which I have put in NFT now? In this slide which I put up, there's a crypto fraud in front of Supreme Court where answer is still pending. Can you just put tell me what exactly is the picture which I put? This is not about the music, but it is about the art. Which art is it? Whose art is it, if you want to put up? Is there anybody who has heard about Mike Wilkenman? He's also known as Beeple, popularly known as Beeple. You know, he basically was doing something, and he started doing his everyday work. Some are created by hand, his pictures are created by hand, and some after 2007, when he had his own computer, he started working on digital art. This work which I have put up for an example to tell you what is the future of cyberspace and IPR. This is a digital art with 5,000 pictures which he created for, yes, art created. It's not art created by, I'll tell you, that is also having an artificial intelligence. But this man who created an artificial as well as a real artistic piece, put all his artwork together, these 5,000 art pieces, every day one picture. That is what was his aim. Every day one picture he created. He followed one of his role model, and after 5,000 of it, he made with use of the artificial intelligence, he brought all the pictures into one box, one column. Now, did you understand what is that he has created? This is the second highest paid in the auction, in the Christie's auction. This is the second highest artistic piece brought in the world by Sundareshan. Now, what does he hold? Does he hold the copyright? Sundareshan, does he hold the copyright, my dear friends? He doesn't hold the copyright. But Sundareshan basically receives rights to display the artwork, but does not receive the copyright. He has displayed the artwork in the digital museum within the metaverse, which the public can view through a web browser. Now, I hope I have made the point clear that even though you are creating a digital art, the creator will have the copyright of it. But when it comes to you owning a digital art, you will get the right to display it under your right as a holder of the digital art. This is going to be the future. Now, the other examples which I could tell you about the digital art and the protection under the copyright law is creation of certain arts through artificial intelligence, where you can see that in the Christie's and Sotheby's, there are certain art pieces which are sold for, I don't know how many zeros are there in that. They are sold for that in the Christie's and Sotheby's auctioneers. The reason is that Future is holding on NFTs, which is going to be giving, you provide the link. If somebody watches, you're going to get a income out of it as such. So this is one part of non-fungible tokens which I wanted to talk. And the one more practical issue that needs to be addressed by NFTs is that today's digital environment, it is very, very easy to copy and produce duplicates of the digital file as many times as one wants. As such, counterfeits are also happening with the digital arts. You know, it is so easy telling, take a digital art, write your name in that. It is so easy. So there is a copy left is one aspect. Now, copy fraud is the new aspect which is coming up in the era of it. After the musicians who can create, there is a new examples where the regional musicians who can't reach the national level. I think all of us cannot become an Indian Idol. We can't become Hemant. We can't become Sonu Nigam. We can't become that. But I can still be an indigenous folk song singer and still hold an NFT for my singing. And that is what the new creation of things which are happening. Now, information, trade secret, and theft of computer programs which are not products. There is a possibility that in the lots of cases which have come up before the court of law, there is information which is protected under the Trade Secrets Act. It is not protected under the normal Databases Act, but it is under Trade Secret Act, and that comes under the Economic Espionage Act of the United States. When that comes, this becomes a reasonable measure to keep such information if he has made that continues to be holder of a trade secrets, and that information have to be protected. And whenever these information are produced for and placed in commerce, my dear friends, this type of trade secrets can be misappropriated. This misappropriation can take place within the company or outside the company or by a competitor, either through any of the illegal methods of misappropriate which can happen. It can come under the copyright violations, not as such by that, but it can come under the other intellectual property rights protection of trade secret, which is not a statutory law, but it is protected both under the tort law and the common law principle, which we still trying to continue to protect, as well as under your new laws, if it is something related to your domain names as such. Then ISPs and copyright violation. Now, all of us know the recent changes which have been made in the ISPs, where we have given a warning to ISPs that if they are ignorant of the content, even in the 2021 ISPs guidelines and regulations, we know that what exactly is the law. We are very, very clear with that if the ISPs do know the content of what is being infringed, it may be a pornography, it may be a copyrighted material, it can be a creator's right which has been breached here, infringed here for that matter, my dear friends. We all know that this can be a protection as such. The reason I'm telling you is that these 2020 guidelines have seen to it that all kinds of protection happen. And in case if the ISP, basically, if you are going to read with section 79 of the Information Technology Act and the guidelines which have been given, which was amended after 2011, this is a recent amendment which has taken place. They are very, very clear that if they get to know, have a notice that it has to be withdrawn with the notice within 48 hours, they have to basically download whatever is considered to be a copyright violated material which is there with that. Otherwise, there can be vicarious liability or a contributory liability. This I will just tell you the aspects of it and then stop somewhere, because there are the search engines sometimes can also be held liable for including defamatory contents without knowingly or unknowingly. The search engines may put up, and we know that we have to read Gutnick's case to understand how online defamation has been well established. And we have referred this time and again in all the defamation cases when it comes to online defamations in India also. And now I will give you the examples which I'm talking about, Craigslist and Uber. Now, most of the times when we talk about Craigslist is a company which actually accesses a network of listing. The listing can be of anything. They create an internet for jobs, apartments, or any other information of the local communities. You can actually take the website Craigslist, which was initially focusing in San Francisco. It has extended all over the world. Even in Bangalore, it has an office. Craigslist Bangalore, it actually posts jobs, but it basically doesn't do anything more than that. They basically, that doesn't do anything. It does a community service also. And there are many events which they will host. People who want to get into that events also, they have to just log on to website. And after that, they can go to the deep linking or linking or whatever it has been done with the agreement of the other companies. Craigslist is very clear that I'm not going to be liable for any of the losses which may happen to you all. Now, there is a comparative study which is being done by an author that if Craigslist is not going to be liable and they are immune from liability, will Uber also be immune from liability? Is Uber basically just a host, or is it playing a vital role in any of the are they holding any of the intellectual property rights? India's largest news Uber or newsroom, are they holding anything? Are they interactive computer services? Are they passive services? Are they active services? Are they interactive services? This rule is very important for us in cyberspace as well as in this one. Is Uber just a passive provider like the Craigslist? Or is it an active provider which will provide you a link to something and it will not be liable at all? Yes, we all think that Uber is trying to claim that I should be immune from liability because I am not having anything that is not my property. I don't do anything basically. It is that we have provided just a platform. We are just a platform and it is like a web hosting service platform only. If anything has to be done, it is you and the third party liability. I am not going to be liable at all. This is the immunity which is the Uber claiming that. So if we are talking about this, my dear friends, now if we are taking that we are going to make Uber liable or not, we are going to have certain questions as a lawyer or a counsel or a person who is going to deal with the intellectual property rights. How they operate, the degree of control they exert over the transaction, the way they may profit from their users, all this will be considered. Are you just an online intermediary or a platform like Flipkart, if you're Amazon or OLX, or are you interacting on taking certain payments directly from the users? So this was the classification which was made in the US court to tell that the concept what Uber is doing is also providing a global logistic layer, that is a plethora of transportation related service which Uber is doing, but also allows the viewers to review, rate, comment, and also they have a structure of profit making. When you're booking an Uber, you know that automatically the prices change and that's a profit motive of the company. Now, are they interactively involved with that? Or is it only a platform which is provided? If it is only a platform, it is immune from liability. But if it is also interactive and the functionality of a intermediary role, it crosses and it becomes a joint enterprise, then we can make him liable, make Uber liable. So these are the new kinds of cases. When it may not, you may think that, ma'am, it is not related to intellectual property. But they are claiming the immunity under the intellectual property rights. But that may not be just an intellectual property right. We also have to look at, is it about what is the plaintiff who have to claim? Is it the skill of the car, or is an independent contractor? Uber drivers are independent contractors. So I am not going to be liable. But once you start taking payments directly, and after taking the payments, if directly payment is made to you, then you distribute it to your drivers, then your liability may be different. It just cannot be what you call it. So this is the case of Duo versus UberTex, which was decided in 2016, where the US courts have denied Uber's motion to dismiss plaintiff's claim on the ground of Californian Supreme Court has left the question open of whether Uber drivers are employees or independent contractors. There is another case which is relating to Uber, relating to intellectual property as well. That is your Berwick versus UberTex, which is a 2015 judgment as such. So with this, we can understand that how ISP liabilities issues are going to be in future. It is not about just, are you going to be part of the transaction? Are you just hosting it? Are you only a platform? Are you interacting with it? Or you know about the content, your infringement content, if it is known to you, and if you don't do as per the guidelines of 2021, then there can be a contributory negligence or a liability or a vicarious liability of the platforms which are going to be, and the law is very well laid down for whatever kind of liability, including intellectual property right liability, you can talk about it. So service provider or content provider. So in future, when cases come up in the emerging cyberspace and IPR issues, they will ask a question to all of the counsels who are going to hear, or the persons who are in intellectual property rights, the attorneys which you are going to talk about. Are you just hosting services, or you are a marketplace? Are you service provider or a content provider? If you are a content provider, what would be your, that is Herix versus Grins LLC's case, which was decided in 2008, where a dating app was not held liable for the harassment which which one of the user was going through, because dating app only provided an option or a platform for you to use, and that was only an option which was given to you all. You know, all of you know Beeble, Bubble, what is that? What are the other dating apps which we have? I really don't remember all the names now, but I do know. What is that? Tinder and all that. These are all platforms and apps which are created to help people meet for the dating facilities. And if there was a sexual harassment and a stalking which went on, the court held that as they basically was only a service provider and they did not have any other, they only created an app, they can't be held liable. So these are the facts which are claiming for immunity, which will come in future also. Other than that, what we should talk about? Fake news. News is very good for all of us. We just watch it. But nowadays, it is just not news. Even if you look at the real news also, you think all of us, all the things are going fake nowadays, my dear friends. Look at the news readers screaming and they are so biased. Basically, when you're talking about, if I take my opinion as such, when I am going to be a news reader or when I'm going to be giving an information to the world, my duty is to give a balanced information and leave it to the people. And I know that every news agency is party prone and the political prone as such. So let's not talk about it. But there is a possibility that by this process of making a platform own a copyright, do platform own a copyright, or not necessarily, but they own a licensing agreement as such, we only have to look at what is an unjust enrichment which they are taking place. If you're talking about the copyright holder or a license holder, even this would be in future a litigating aspect in the licensing agreements which the cyberspace would also get into. Now, there can be accidental infringement, my dear friends. Some people don't intentionally do it, but there is an accidental. There is a one landmark judgment which is called as Orphanverse Project, OWP, Authors Guild Incorporation versus Hattie Trust, 2014 judgment. Why was I interested when I was reading this judgment? It is really a really good way of bringing copyrighted material to one platform. So what was this University of Michigan was doing was, they took a large scale project which was basically designed to digitally accept out of the print works in their library and put it into Orphanverse project. They had a multi-million project. So they wanted all the works to be put up there. And they just gave a notice to people that as of now, we have not found the copyright holders of these works which are there with us. In case if somebody wants to claim a copyright, kindly claim a copyright. And otherwise, we are going to bring it under and we are going to basically, but whose copyright holder cannot be readily identified and we are a non-profit one, but we are going to upload it. This is what they wanted to give to the world. All the information which there was no copyright project, they wanted to give it to the world. Should we contest this case or not? If somebody wants to do this work, should we? Gutenberg is a free book app which basically choose among free EPUB and Kindle ebooks, and that is given to you. If the copyright holder doesn't have any objections, then you can always give anything. See, unless and I litigate, I am not going to this project. Gutenberg was to bring in all the free books, and there are in Kindle also some books which you buy this book, one book can be downloaded free of cost as such. Now, if I am talking about this, my dear friends, the court came to a conclusion that this case was taken up by Authors Guild. No individual author took up the matter, but Authors Guild Incorporation took up the matter, and they told that even though copyright holders, because the copyright still continues to exist, you can't have a copyright combination of all of them unless and until the copyright holders, it has come to the public domain as such. So the court came to a conclusion telling that copyright infringement is a strict liability tort. Liability attaches when someone infringes the right, regardless of how careful the defendant tried to prevent any legal wrongdoing. So even if it was David Papa doing it for a good purpose, they were doing it for a profit, non-profit basis also, the court came to a conclusion that that cannot be done. And there are few more accidental infringing cases, which basically consist where the author publisher would have come into some conclusion. Somebody must have bought it and uploaded it without understanding that there is a copyright violation. Should we make them liable as a person who intentionally does? So which we have to look into the copyright law of each of the country, a territorial perspective, and then understand. Now let's talk about the cable television and signal theft. Now all of you must have heard about cable television. How do we get to cable television? Sometimes it is directly by the satellite, sometimes it is wired, sometimes it is wireless, sometimes it is digitally given as such. Now the recent developments which are happening is satellite decrambling technology which is used by the parties, and this is a intellectual property violation in cyberspace. How do we do that? There can be some digital video broadcasting systems which remain vulnerable for privacy. You can actually break into them. There may be smart cards which you have to use, and in the using with smart card, we can have an illegal and an illegal way of using the smart cards. And if you're using it illegally, a cable does, you can have a cable decrambler. It is a device which decodes a cable television signal, and what you have not paid for also you can use it. I hope we understand what we are doing. We are decrypting a cable programming without payment, my dear friends. So when we do that, there is a possibility that you will not only violate the intellectual property rights, but also you can be held criminally and civilly actionable under the law as such. So other than this decrambling which is happening nowadays, child rights in entertainment industry has come to a standstill, I'll tell you. Now, are we not expecting too much from our children nowadays? We want everybody to be an Indian Idol, best dancer, Indian dancer, super dancer. I tell my child to dance, I tell my child, he will tell, no, Amma, I'm not interested in all that. Every parent want their children to be in the media. If you look at what is that talent, Indian talent hunt nowadays, it's like chutku people are creating so much of content, and also child rights. I'll tell you, friends, tomorrow, only in future, these children who are basically not entering into contract directly, but through their parents, will have hundreds of privacy issues and data problems, because by the time what they have created as a content when they are minor, basically the contract would tell them that what they are liable, what they are not liable, to what extent they have right, to what extent they don't have a right. Probably none of us would have understood it. I'll tell you, the way we don't understand the privacy policy, even this cannot be understood. And their intention would be honored when they become major or not, we still don't know. And how can I make out that this is what has happened with that? All of you must have heard about Taylor Swift. She is the best example where the children are vulnerable in the cyberspace and intellectual property rights holding. When Taylor Swift was very, very young, she became a popular artist. And you know, my dear friends, her first recording, which was there, she was signed when she was a 15-year-old. That means she was not a major when she signed it for the first time. And in 2019, the Bug Machine was purchased by Scooter Braun, who was now controls the masters to Taylor Swift's first 6 albums. Whatever she created during when she was minor, all that is under one of the, that means Itacha Holdings, they have that. And masters are the original copies of the CDs, that means the recording which has happened, and the music, it is there with the music industry's holding. They are physical copies of the original recording and the copyrights associated with them. Now, if Taylor Swift wants them, even though she has become one of the most popular singer and world-renowned artist, till 2041, try to understand, till 2041, she can't get the master's copy with her. Even though she is the one who has created that, because it is being held by somebody when she was a minor, all her first digital copies will be there. And this is one kind of intellectual property problems. That means the challenges which will emerge in the future. And now the other one is right to publicity, which I was talking about, my dear friends. Now, when Olympic gold medals were won by Indians, we never dreamt that India, I know with a huge population, we could have won it so many years back only. But this is the first time we had, I think, probably a double-digit medal list in India. Now, when I'm in a middle, for example, think for me, take an example of myself. I'm very fat. Probably VLCC would take my picture before and after. Everybody remember, before and after. Nandini, before this and after coming to VLCC and post the picture. Can they do it without my permission, my dear friends? Can they put up my picture without, even though I am their patient, can they put up my picture and tell Nandini before and after or anything? No. Like that. When you looked at this Olympic gold medalist, including there is a notice which was given by PV Sindhu when she won the Olympic medal second time as a bronze medal. Many a time she actually became a brand ambassador for many of the products, but many of the others used her name, used her photograph, even without asking her, my dear friends. That means even without taking her permission that I'm using your photo, I'm using your the name as such, they gave it with their product, including advertisement, as if it is a congratulatory note they gave it. And in the manner of doing, they used it for publicity and false marketing strategy also. So this may not probably come under the child rights, but it comes under not only the child artist rights, but also under the celebrities who have been used as such. And this right to privacy and right to publicity, where either the celebrities' right or the parental privileges have to be the future aspect of what we are talking about. And the social media, which is creating child's digital identity. Tomorrow, what is the privacy, which is unwanted exposure? Control of personal autonomy in images presented to others, and an economic interest in the value, all these are going to be the futuristic form of the publicity rights. And many a times the copyrights of performance patchwork of law leads to forum shopping. We all know that there is a forum shopping technology where people use to get the remedies as such. The performers' copyrights can be through forum shopping, which can be as such. Now, protection of kid influencers are also happening in the and now comes your political television and protection of children. Yes, we have to take a lot of measures for the IP protection of this right to publicity. And now comes speech creation, cultural changes, political speech, professional news gathering, and citizen journalism. Now, everybody are a journalist. I and you can also become a journalist. But we don't come under PCI, please understand. The Press Council of India, we don't come under Press Council of India. And because of this unorthodox news and journalist which been created, political speech, anybody can become a political reader overnight. Now, cultural changes are happening when it comes to it. How do we basically protect? We can talk about political speech which are good and bad. See, for example, public display of affection, which Obama did to his Mrs. Obama, that can become a good or a bad sign. And these photographs can be used later, which can be an infringement of privacy. And that still comes under the right to privacy infringement and the data protection laws. And news gathering by itself can become a sources and keywords used by individuals which can be gathered, can be the futuristic law of telling what can be the data, digital data collection and violation of this digital data collection. So secret investigation recordings are considered to be wrong. Citizen journalism are going to be wrong, but many a times it has done good. Many a times, because of the citizen journalism, there is a product recall which are happening, which are protected as such. Recall of products has happened in many of the FICC, that is food safety measures also, like what happened in Maggi is because of the media outcry. Maggi had to withdraw and they had a market again. It is a better market which has been come. Now comes to your discrimination law, my dear friends. Don't think that only because internet is free of discrimination, it is not discriminated. Facebook itself is discriminatory. When you are a dark fellow, when you are a fair fellow, your picture appears differently. And when you're talking about male-female ratio, there is a discrimination in all the good companies which we are talking about. So don't think that cyberspace is out of discrimination. There is racial, there is class discrimination, and the problem of web scrapping is also happening. Scrapping is where you are going to take out the data, scrap from here and there and make a data out of it and then doing it. It is an offense under CFAA, and that is what is to be considered. So I just scroll down to see that what is there anything like web crawling is what one of the doctrines which have been talked about, and the recent one is drone regulations which have been done around in 2018 in India and in other countries. Drone is creating data, and especially these drones are unmanned aerial vehicles which are going to create lot of databases even without my knowledge. When I go to a wedding, my drones which are all around are collecting my data, my eating style, my eating things, whatever it is, which I don't want to be seen. So what is the control which has to come in future? Is it part of the intellectual property law? And this is physical privacy or information privacy, which is going to be protected. And there are wonderful papers which study that what remedies should be made. And as of now, the Electronic Privacy Information Center under the GDPR also, there is enough protection to be given. And in India, we have a drone regulation already in place, so we have not much to worry about it. And US law has various data law and then intellectual privacy as such. Now I'm going to talk little about intellectual privacy and then probably stop it for questions. Intellectual privacy means what I am doing. You know, from probably 2 to 3 days, I'm reading for the class which I was assigned to by that is DPIIT. By the time I do, I must have searched so many new information which are happening around the world. And this is intellectual privacy. Most of it should not be known to the world that what I am reading, what research I am doing. It is spoofing. It's actually called as spoofing. It is espionage which you are doing about it. Now, we all know that now in the future, it is going to be a cyber war. Economic espionage is one thing, but cyber espionage and cyber smear is going to be another problem which is going to come up in the cyberspace, my dear friends. So there is a room for one's own intellectual privacy which is going to be infringed, and I think it is going to be a threat to the future creation of data and acquisition of data. For that, we need to take measures to curb this intellectual privacy, being actually Tangari movie, which has been artistic feature. And you know, nowadays 3 or 4 movies are made with iPhone only. They did not use any other Apple iPhone 13, 12 use karke. They have made movies out of it. And what is a copyright law that is what we are talking about in future, my dear children. And most of this is having an impact on human rights also. And this human right and data collection is going to be a major issue in future. And data, that is the Baidu, Alibaba and Tencent together, what we call as BAT, are going to be the future. Will they be the future? It has been said, yes, they are going to be the future. And the fiber forensics analysis also will be of great use. And the algorithms which are used by AI are all covering our interest, our privacy interest. And if I create an algorithm which is going to be calling a cat or a dog, and it is going to give a result as dog, even though it looks like a cat, it may look like a dog. So future is on internet, and then we know what Sophia can do, what can good robots do, and now we are talking about artificial. Recently, I was reading something like that, which is brilliant. If an artificially created artificial intelligence can get a copyright or not, is it only the creator of AI should get, or even the artificial intelligence should get the futuristic in the 4th industrial revolution? What is that which you are going to come is what we talk about AI and IPR violations and digital weaponry and spying espionage. And we know that now when the Russia and Ukraine war is happening, there are lots of attack which is happening, cyber attacks against the Ukraine. It has happened against Israel before. It has happened against many countries, including. And I think the reasons for all this is fake news, revenge prone, which is coming up nowadays, trademark violations and domain name violations, which are imposed as a trademarks as such. I think probably including the keyword advertisements and domain name infringements. I think I should be probably stopping right to possess what and what not has to be thought about. So with this, my dear friends, I will tell you there will be a future challenges. That is domain name a personal property? Is it a contract or an IP? So now we have given the status of IP, but some authors say that it is only a contractual liability or a personal property of some company or an individual as such. So it should not be considered to be an AP. Maybe future litigations will bring in the status of domain name as such. So in certain Indian, we call it as a property right. In certain other countries, they call it as a contractual right as such. So there is patent infringement, just an example of patent infringement which is happening. There are patent counterfeits going on. This is the original created and this is an artificial one. So there is a possibility that patent also is going to be emerging issue of economic development, inventions made, nanotechnology and traditional knowledge and the benefit sharing. So what should be done, my dear friends? If we know that cyberspace is going to be a challenge for the IP protection, make the ecosystem correct, cyber ecosystem as a proper way, empower open standards like the open source software, which you all know that the copyright copy left will be again copyrightable by somebody as such. Make mechanisms for IT security, ensure critical information infrastructure, make an assurance framework, fortifying the regulatory framework and e-administration services. If all these things are going to do well, and beyond all that, I always recommend when it comes to cyberspace, it is better that we self-police and self-regulate. And that is the best recommendation as a person who reads it. I am not an expert in this area, but I keep reading in this area. With that, I can tell. And I immensely thank all of you for listening. And also the chair, GB Reddy sir and his good team, which has been working great. Everybody thinks that only national law schools or anybody else or even traditional universities can do the best is one of the examples which I can tell.
Madam, thank you so much, madam, for the presentation. In fact, it was an eye-opener of sorts where we understood that there is IP in some things of information and technology which we did not realize earlier. Thank you so much, ma'am. And and for such a long time, you have continuously given the lecture. It's really awe-inspiring, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I request Mr. Srinivas Rao to please propose vote of thanks on behalf of the chair.
Sir, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for gracing this evening. And today I'm privileged to host this vote of thanks. So on behalf of DPIIT IPR Chair OU. So this is a most burning topic, ma'am, that which you have selected today. And right from blockchain, DeFi, digital rights management, which is commonly known as DRM, AI, artificial intelligence, IoTs, and all that stuff, you have shared an introduction to the dark world as well. Effects and precisely touching upon the modus operandi of those kinds of activities. So you have enumerated the effects of IoT right from copying, infringement, challenges with digital rights management, and shared a flashing information on cache memory, so which was very scary and informative as well. It was also most informative when you talked about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, its effects, importance, value addition in the current world, and how and the addition it does to the digital rights management, and how to get how it gets automatically fixed digitally. So you have also touched upon metaverse, which we believe which is going to be future ahead, and the awareness given on the crypto and the updates shared on the blockchain, and crypto declaration as a part of digital assets and its valuation. Overall, you have shared a wide, diversified, and the leading examples, which will help our viewers to take up more interesting topics in this domain, to be explored and to do more research and prosper in their life. So you have briefed about data privacy, digital discrimination, intellectual privacy, overall which were very informative and eye-openers in some of the cases. Thank you one and all. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being present here and addressing to our viewers and participants. So before leaving, I request everyone to please ensure that you have subscribed to our Telegram and YouTube channel to get regular updates on the weekly lecture series of DPIIT IPR Chair OU. And you can view all our past lectures as well on the YouTube channel. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming here. Thank you, Dr. Irfan. Thank you all the
Mr.
participants.
Srinivas sir. Thank you,
Vanessa.
Irfan sir, and thank you, GB Reddy sir, and all the participants. I think you made the day a better day because of the questions and answers in the chat box. Thank you so much.